Hey folks, it's John from A is for Alcoholic again. Today's conversation is with Chade Turner. He's been a patron of ours on Patreon for quite some time. Jerry and I got to sit and talk with him for a little bit, and it was great to hear his story. He has a lot of calm, he has a lot of knowledge, he has a lot of wisdom that he was kind enough to share with us. One of my favorite things is that he opened my eyes to some of the blind spots that I have, and that's what I love about all these conversations, is that there's a perspective out there that I'm not seeing. And so I'm always looking to try and figure out what is the blind spot, what am I missing? And in this conversation, there was definitely some revelations, epiphanies, and all in all, just eye-opening conversation. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Chade Turner. What's your earliest memory of alcohol, either ingesting it or growing up with it? Where did it start for you?
Well, my dad was a recovered alcoholic too, and he got sober like 2 years before I was born, probably.
Okay.
And so we didn't grow up with alcohol. I thought anybody that drank beer or booze was a dirty alcoholic, that because I grew up in a sober household, and I grew up going to we went to a lot of conferences. My mom ran an Al-Anon deal, and my dad was really active in the program and everything. So I grew up around that scene, and I remember I was probably 8 or 10 years old. And my dad had like 2 cans of Milwaukee's Beast sitting on the kitchen counter. And I was like, what's that doing in the house? It freaked me out. And somebody had told him to pour beer on the tree to get rid of some kind of worms that we had in the tree, But that was the first time that I'd ever seen, my uncle was drank a lot and stuff, and he died and he never got sober, but that was my first experience with it in the house, and I they drugged me to conferences and stuff, and I was young, and I'd always end up trying to fall asleep under a table or something. And but I do remember thinking, the people at those places, everybody was walking around and smiling, and everybody laughed all the time, and they gave each other hugs and said they loved one another and they were happy to see them. And I always thought, damn, I want to be part of that when I grow up. That's a pretty cool thing, all these people getting together. And I'll be damned if I didn't end up becoming part of it.
Right. I guess it's just it's that part in the middle that's always rough, right?
Yeah. As far as some of the isms, I can look back in my life and see it my whole life. I'm another outsider that never fit in, and all the jazz that everybody hears and says, and that was definitely it. I grew up, working. My dad, he drugged me to work at a really young age, and I always thought, now I look back, and he was pretty wild as a kid and everything in his life, and I thought he probably assumed that I might go that way too, so he always kept a good eye on me and put me to work. And I hated it my whole life. It was slave labor in my opinion, but I'm really, really grateful for it now. It taught me a lot about work and work ethic and stuff. But
so do you think like the work was that was his way of, rather than trying to convince you not to drink, but rather just keep you busy? So that you had
I think he was just trying to teach me responsibility, and instead of running around and smoking weed and chasing girls, I went to work after school, and like I said, I hated it then, but I see now, and it's a good thing for a kid to go to work and do that. I think I learned a lot of life skill and lessons from it, and it did keep me out of trouble for the most part. Through high school, I never partied or drank in high school. I was a church kid. I think I drank 1 beer in high school, a hot Budweiser, and it was fucking horrible. I lied to my parents and told them that my friends' parents asked if I could stay the night. Well, they were out of town, So I went over and stayed the night with him, and we walked around town all night. And his brother had a 6-pack of Budweiser, and I drank that one, and not even drink the whole thing, I'm sure. And we walked over to my girlfriend's house and hung out with her on the porch all night. Who's now my wife. But that was my first experience drinking. But it did, sitting there with my buddy's older brother drinking that hot ass Budweiser, I felt cool, man.
Yeah.
I was in the game,
Hmm.
But I went to church and stuff a lot after that. And like I said, I never drank in high school. I nothing until after I graduated, really.
So when did you have your first that sort of alcoholic, or did you have an alcoholic epiphany where you're like, this is where I belong and this is what I need and this is the answer to all of my problems?
Well, I really didn't.
Okay.
Uh, I started drinking whenever I moved out and got on my own and drinking with friends and stuff. And it was all fun and games. We were just partying, young kids, And I remember telling my buddy, I'm a big old country music guy, Waylon Jennings and all the good stuff from the 60s and 70s. And we'd sit there and listen to Waylon albums and stuff I had on vinyl. And we'd sit there and drink whiskey and chase it with Coke. And we promised ourselves that we were going to shoot straight whiskey, no chaser. We were just going to drink out of the bottle by Christmas. This was toward the end of the summer. And by God, by Christmas, man, we were drinking whiskey straight up. No big deal, and I was trying to live the outlaw life. I thought that shit was cool,
Sure.
drinking and dancing and all that stuff. But I was playing music at that point in time, and it was actually a Christian band, So I drank and stuff on the weekends, and whenever I was home off tour, and just kind of did that at my house, and it was still just partying and having fun. It wasn't an issue and stuff, and.
Hmm.
My wife and I, in 2007, we moved back to Perryton from Amarillo, Texas. My dad had a heart attack at that point in time, and asked me to move back and help him work and stuff. So we did, and it was still just normal drinking. I don't think I had a drinking problem at that point in time. And building choppers and going to motorcycle shows and drinking and riding choppers was my big deal then, and it all turned when my dad died. Is whenever something happened and switched, and I was 25 at that point in time, but he died, and I inherited the business. I took it over and kept that going, and I did good, but I started having the weight of the world was on me after that. I felt so much responsibility that I had to be my dad is what I thought. I had to work, keep the business going for myself and my employees, and take care of my mother and take care of my uncle and take care of my dad's my brothers and sisters. And I had to step up and be the new post, the new patriarch of the family, and I fucking failed big time.
Did you find it, even when you're drinking at this point and you're not, like you said, it's still fun and there's not really any consequences, did those thoughts of growing up in AA or in recovery with your dad, were they ever conflicting, or thinking like, oh well, this is just fun, there's no consequences, or I know how this ends, or at least through my dad? Was there
Yeah,
any conflict?
I didn't think that I had a problem. I didn't think
Okay.
at that point in time I didn't realize anything. And
Okay.
my dad, he knew I drank and he saw me drink, and I went to work every day, and I really didn't have a drinking problem at that
Right.
time. And he was a pretty solid dude. If he really wasn't going to say anything until, he wasn't going to come beat on my door and tell me. He wasn't an evangel in that way. He
Mm-hmm.
was a let you learn your lesson kind of guy, and that's
Okay.
what But while he was alive, I never had an issue. I smoked a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pot. I was a big pothead. I smoked, first thing whenever I got up, and all day and until I went to sleep. But I worked. I went out. I never got in trouble. I wasn't wild, and after he died, something happened. Whenever I started smoking it was different. I got super nervous whenever I smoked weed from then on, and it made me super uncomfortable. I'd smoke a bowl and I'd get paranoid. Somebody was going to call me. I was looking out the blinds like, oh shit, somebody's going to stop by. I don't want to see anybody. I got really paranoid for some reason after that. And I started laying off weed and started drinking more at that point in time.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. That's just like very similar to what happened with me and weed, because I smoked weed all the time and hardly drank. And then there's some switch that flipped in me where every time I got stoned, I wasn't worried about people coming over as much as I was worried about like I was dying. I was one of those guys that would like have a panic attack and be like, fuck, my arms are too long or some weird shit, or like I can't fucking breathe. And so, yeah, I just started drinking instead of smoking weed. And that was kind of, I can really relate to that though. It's like replacing one thing with the other, you know?
Yeah. Weed made my mind race. Like all the problems started running through my mind, you know, and I would just get a nervous wreck. And then, so I quit smoking weed. I just stopped, you know, because I hated the way it felt, and started drinking a little bit more and more. And there wasn't I just went downhill steadily and not at a rapid pace at that point in time. And just more of the world, the weight, this heavy ass weight that I felt, you know. And every day I tried to wake up and be him, you know. He was my fucking hero, man. He was a good dude. He was a good man. He was the definition of love and patience, you know. And he was a good man. And now I know everything that he was through getting sober and doing that path, you know, through the program or whatever. That's the way he chose to do it, and I see that now, and that's a big reason why I went that direction, went that route. I fell back on my past and experience in that whenever I knew I needed help.
So when you're beginning to drink heavily and you're feeling, again, you talk, which I relate to as well, as that feeling of responsibility and the crushing, it just comes down on you, and you can't even be what you think you're supposed to be. And was there any, I mean, were you with your wife at this point? You guys, were you?
Yeah. We her and I have been together since we were 13.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We started dating in junior high, man. Met at the skating rink, and a couple skate Friday night. Dog, we fucking go round and round. And we did it all through high school. And I graduated and moved to Oklahoma City and started working. And her and I got engaged. I graduated high school when I was 17, and she graduated when she was 16. So we got married. I was 18 when we got married, and she was 17. She was just a couple months shy of 18 even whenever we got married. And
was she a drinker as well? Or
no, she never was. You know, whenever I got really bad, she'd drink with me, you know, and she got pretty bad too at that time. And but yeah, let's see, my dad died, I was 25. After that, everything kind of gets a little blurry. But I guess it was 2015, and I started drinking quite a bit. You know, I'd gone on to beer, wasn't quite doing it, so I was going on to whiskey, and that was pretty heavy. And I eventually wound up with vodka as my deal. You know, I could mix it half and half with Sprite and throw it down and get exactly to the point where I wanted to be pretty quick. That was my goal. I was at point A, and I want to be at point B right now. It's always my problem.
Was there, at what point do you, like, so this is 2015, did you have a moment? Did you have a rock bottom? Did you have a turning point where you finally said, where something had happened? Or was it just like, what was the moment of clarity, or what was the rock bottom that you found yourself in?
Yeah. Okay. So I struggled on through 2016, on through 2015 and 16, and during 2016, I basically didn't work. I quit working. You know, my phone quit ringing, and you know, we all think we're a pretty smooth operator, but apparently everybody knew but me. You know, but
Yeah.
I was a drunk, man. And I was sketchy and I was flaky, and I wasn't getting much work. And my wife, you know, tried her best to run the cruise and run the company at that time, and she did her best, but that's not what she does, you know. That's what I was supposed to do. And our marriage, of course, was all but over. You know, we basically ended up sleeping in the same house, and that was about it. You know, I'd call her. I remember one time I called her. I woke up. I drink on 24-hour cycles. I just drink till I passed out. Whenever I woke up, I'd start drinking again, whatever time it may be. And I remember waking up and I called her, and I saw the clock said 8. And I called her, "Where the fuck are you at? You know, aren't you home?" She said, "Chade, it's 8 in the morning. I'm at work." And I was like, "Oh shit, it's 8 in the morning? Really?" You know, and I had lost all concept of time, you know, and I'd call her, and she'd go get me a bottle of vodka just to shut me up. I think,
Damn.
you know, because I would just called her and bitched and whined, and I was drunk all the time. I didn't draw a sober breath for about a year and a half, you know, and I didn't really drive anywhere. I was just a hermit in the house, man, dying.
And what was the thing that brought you out of that, or what?
Well, I went to the hospital twice within that year.
Okay.
Almost died. And I don't even remember what happened. I remember the last time I went, I ended up calling my mom, and I thought I was dying. You know, I couldn't breathe. I was just so drunk. And I called her, and then all I remember is an ambulance showing up and paramedics picking me up. You know, and they drug me out to the ambulance, and they were asking me questions, you know, my name and if I knew where I was at, my birthday, and I answered them all. You know, yeah, I'm at my house. You put me in the ambulance. This is my birthday, and the guy just kind of looked at me like, "The hell's wrong with you, dude?" You know, because I was obviously highly intoxicated. But anyway, they take me to the hospital and pull my blood, and I had a .41.
Wow.
Damn.
Alcohol level, man.
Damn. Yeah.
And they put an IV in me and let me go in an hour or two. And my mom took me to another town, Pampa, to a bigger hospital, and talked about trying to get me on a medical detox because I was so, you know, I was swollen. My eyeballs and face was yellow. I mean, like yellow, man. And I was just, it was crazy. I've got a picture of it, and I look at it sometimes, and it's crazy the way I looked. You know, I weigh 160 pounds. I'm 6 foot tall, and I weighed 190 pounds, I think, at that time. And I had never been over 165 in my life, you know, and it was all just swollen fluid and shit in me. But they took me down there and they said, "No, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. You've got jaundice. You're yellow and your liver's starting to shut down. You know, you need to quit drinking," basically is all they said, and let me out. You know, they weren't going to help a drunk that was just going to go home and drink again. It's kind of where the medical community had gotten with me. So she drives me home, my mom, and takes me to her house and feeds me Pedialyte and soup for a few days to try to save my life, you know. And she asked me if she'd come over. And when I was drunk, I remember one time coming over, and I was sitting in my chair, just plastered, and she starts poking me in the chest. "You're fucking sick." You know, "You're fucking sick, son. You need help." You know, she's a good old Al-Anon. Yeah, she comes scoop me up, man, and kidnap me and drive me out at her house, and I was shaking so bad. I had the shakes for about 8 months after I stopped.
Jesus.
And, she asked me if I would think about going to treatment, you know, and I never even thought about going to AA at this point. It was just, in my mind, all I could think of, what the fuck's wrong with me? You know, I'm a pussy. You know, what's wrong with me? All my buddies, they drink like I do. You know, I drink with them, and then I come home and I can't manage to get up to work the next day. What the hell's wrong with me? I'm weak. You know, is what I thought. Well, turns out I'd leave my buddy's house and they went to sleep. I came home and kept drinking. You know, so they were
Yep.
doing what I was doing.
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
know that though.
That's when the party begins, when everybody
Yeah,
else goes
man.
to bed.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
fuck.
And I think
But
that
I
really
remember having what I called my 3 o'clock moments a lot, nightly. And it was, I'd wake up and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd go in the kitchen and my drink was vodka and Sprite, you know, maybe half and half so that I wouldn't turn my gut up too bad. But I'd stand there at the fridge, just swaying back and forth at 3 o'clock in the morning, just thinking, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can't I stop? You know, I'm weak. There's something wrong with me. I'm not a man. You know, I can't control my drinking. You know, I wish I was more of a man. I could quit. You know, and that was all that went through my mind at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just downed booze to try to get drunk enough to pass out, to get a few moments of peace. Basically, is all I wanted. I just wanted some peace, man, and I couldn't find that. It was always fleeting.
it's such a like when you talk about it, when I listen to you say that and you're like, I'm weak and I don't know what's wrong with me. And it says so much about the power of alcohol, that you growing up in a household where somebody, you know, of a recovering alcoholic, somebody who you have nothing but great things to talk about and say, and not even seeing the first beer until 8 and having like recoiling from it. Like, what is that doing in here? And for you to have grown up with this and then to not be able to, the alcohol like blinds you to there being any other answer out there or any other option. Because I know that when I try to remember back to those times, and not exactly, but I love that 3 o'clock moments, and I've had those, and oftentimes like just laying in my bed drinking.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to go out to the fridge, and not even seeing that there was an option, even at the time after I knew people who had recovered from it, it did not seem like an option. So it just says a lot about the power of alcohol that we can't see a way out.
Yeah. You know, I remember probably when I was 18 or 20, you know, growing up and thinking that anybody that drank was an alcoholic, you know, and that was never told to me, you know, that my dad or parents never told me that or anything, but that was just the kind of the concept that I had, is that anybody that drank was an alcoholic. So whenever I was 18 or whatever and I started drinking, it wasn't no big deal. I was like, well, shit, I can drink and catch a buzz and go to sleep and go the next day. What's the big deal about drinking? You know, and I didn't understand that it's a whole different world whenever you cross that threshold, you know. So it creeped up on me, and I never knew I could always handle my shit. And then all of a sudden realized one day I couldn't. And alcoholism never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It was just a weakness that I was a failure is what I thought, you know.
Right, that it's some sort of moral failing on our parts as human beings, as men,
right.
that we just you can't handle your booze.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, and you know, one of the things that I've come to realize is that I'm not supposed to handle my booze. You know what I mean? It's nothing to be proud of that I can imbibe quarts and quarts of liquor, you know?
Yeah. It's
it took me a long time to figure that one out. But where do you go from like the 3 o'clock moments until like what happens between that and saying I have had enough?
You know, it was whenever my mom came and picked me up and took me to the hospital and all that and dragged me out of her house. There was something. There was something, man. You know, I was fixing to fucking die, literally.
Yeah.
I'm 32 years old, and I'm fixing to drink myself to death at 32.
Yeah.
And I reluctantly went to treatment. You know, it was kind of a cool deal. A guy that my dad helped and sponsored years back, my mom had gotten a hold of him, and he's down in South Texas, and he runs sober living stuff and does a lot of work with treatment centers down there. And she asked me if I can get you in a place, are you willing to go? Would you go? And I just said, yeah, you know, I'll try anything. I was so fucking tired. I was just so tired. It's a lot of work to stay fucked up like that all the time, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Jesus. Nobody answered my phone calls. Nobody came to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all their fault, those assholes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And my mom, I'd be mad at her. My mom's a terrible person because she hadn't called me in 6 months.
Yeah.
And this is stuff that I didn't realize and see the truth until after the fog lifted. But I had a resentment against everybody. Everybody was an asshole, and nobody liked me anymore, and I didn't know why the hell.
Yeah.
I'm the same guy.
Right.
But she asked me if I would be willing to go, and I just said yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. I don't want to feel like this no more. I'm so fucking tired. And so she loaded me up, and 2 days later took me down to south of Dallas to a place down there. And I was scared to death. I thought we were going to be in padded rooms, wearing slippers and robes,
Yeah.
carrying around IV bags like in the movies. I didn't know what to expect. And I went down there, and they evaluated me and let me in that place. And that place saved my life, man. It really did. I know treatment's not a necessity. I don't think neither of you guys went to treatment.
No. But, I could have used it. I fucking could have used it.
Me too. Yeah, I just didn't know how to get it. I really didn't.
Right,
I didn't
exactly.
Start. I was just like, I don't know, money.
I mean, the shit's expensive.
Yeah.
Some centers are like 30, 40 grand for 30 days.
That's great.
But it was a real miracle. This guy that my dad helped was hooked up with these treatment centers, a few of them, and he got me a scholarship. I didn't have any money, of course. My mom didn't have money to do that. I don't have insurance or anything like that then.
Yeah.
So he got me a scholarship and got me in there just because I was Fred Turner's son, and Fred Turner helped save his life, 15, 20 years earlier. And that's one of the more beautiful things about my story, I think.
Yeah.
It all went full circle.
Yeah.
But I got down there, and I was 32 at the time, and I was one of the oldest guys in there. I thought they were all going to be a bunch of 60-year-old drunks.
Right.
That their kids sent them in there to get them sobered up for the old folks home, is what I thought. But I got in there, and they were all like 17 to 25-year-old kids, and they let it was it's not AA affiliated, but it was a big book. The lessons that we did were straight out of the big book. They didn't claim to be AA, but this was the curriculum or study, or however you want to say it. That's what we did. We read the big book and had meetings and stuff every day, all day. We woke up at 5:30 in the morning, had time for a cigarette and a cup of coffee, and then we had a meditation, a group meditation in a dark room next to the cafeteria for 30 or 45 minutes, and that was my first experience with meditation. Ever. And,
how did you take to it? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I fell in love with it immediately.
Wow.
Awesome.
I've always been I love the outdoors. I like fly fishing and stuff like that a lot. And so we go up to the mountains, and I can sit by the river and just watch the water all day with not a thought in my mind. And I've been like that my whole life. So learning about meditate, they kind of taught you a little bit, but not much. It was basically just sit there and be quiet, and they played meditation music. It was like they had Pink Floyd meditation. It was a cover album of Pink Floyd, like meditation.
That's awesome. Wow.
It was awesome. It was cool. But we did that and learned the stuff in the big book, worked the steps. And I did that for 30 days, and they had forgotten about me. I slipped through on the paperwork. And everybody kept asking me, like you're in jail, when are you getting out, man? So I don't know. They haven't told me. And like 28 days in, they said, hey, shit, somehow you slipped through. You're getting out of here day after tomorrow. And then the stress and worry just flooded over me. You know, it was really easy to stay sober and be positive and do everything in that little bubble. You know,
Yeah.
it was a closed campus. We didn't leave or anything, you know, and we didn't have any visitors. I didn't have any phone calls. I didn't have a computer, no nothing. I mean, you didn't have anything. They go to the store once a week and they take a cigarette order and they buy you smokes if you had money on your account or whatever.
Yeah.
So I got smokes and that was it. There was no outside contact at all. But you know, in my experience, that was the best way it could have been. There was no outside distractions. There was nothing. I couldn't talk to my mom. I couldn't talk to my wife. I couldn't talk to anybody, you know. And but that 28 days, they said you're getting out and day after tomorrow, and that feeling hit me of, can I make it out in the world? You know, I've never, you know, I woke up in the morning and I took a drink before I took a piss. You know, that was the first thing I did, is go in there and try to take some shots of vodka to steady my hand enough to be able to pour a full shot and not spill it.
Yeah.
You know, basically. So I couldn't comprehend what life was like before I had that problem like that. That was all I knew and all I remembered. You know, that was life. You shake and you drink to stop shaking. You know, that's all I knew.
I just had a revelation in talking to you, because it's almost like you go through the process of rehab, which is almost, in a way, I wouldn't say easier, but like a smoother path. But then when you come out, you face so much more, you know. Like my personal experience, I went into it all raw. Like I just was like, I got to get my shit together, and just started going to random meetings. So I was like already out into the world. I didn't even realize that coming out of rehab into society, where it's all business as fucking usual. Do you know what I mean? Like, like it like hit me right now. I was like, God damn. No shit. Yeah.
I felt like
That's
I was going to be thrown to the wolves, you know?
Yeah, it must have been scary as hell, honestly. I mean, I imagine it was frightening. Yeah.
I mean, I go from drinking a gallon of vodka every day. I drink 2 handles every day.
Yeah. God damn.
Know?
Wow.
And to nothing. Straight up. Whenever I took that last drink, February 13th, 2017, man, that's my day, bro. And from then on, I haven't had a drop. But I'm in rehab, dude, and I had a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, whatever you want to call it. I didn't think about booze. I didn't want booze. I was done. You know, I had I was so sick and I felt so terrible.
Yeah.
At the end. It was like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, you tell me how to get sober, I will do that. Tell me now how.
Right.
You know, it's where I was at.
Yeah.
And something. I didn't realize anything happened in there. You know, but after I got out, something had happened, and I wasn't ready to go home yet. I was terrified to come back home. I didn't think I could just go to work next Monday and start from where I left off. But my brother, he lived out at Lake Havasu, Arizona, and they were remodeling their kitchen. And he said, man, come out here for a little while if you want to. So I did. I came home and changed clothes. This was in February, obviously, or February, March, whenever I got out. So it was still chilly here in Texas. So I came home and packed shorts. And my mom drove me out to Lake Havasu.
Yeah.
And my brother's a preacher. That's a hell of a party town out there. But he's a good dude. He's a straight up guy. And so I went out there, and I was there about 3 weeks out helping him remodel his kitchen and all that stuff. And whenever I first got out, I called my banker. He was a big part of me getting sober. My banker, he was an old friend of my dad's that they grew up together. And my dad had helped his wife get sober in the years past too. And my banker, his name's Doug. He's not an alcoholic. He's not a drinker really. So he didn't understand. And he called me one day when I was screwed up and because I was behind on all my loans and I wasn't making any money. And he literally just did a welfare check. He said, hey, you know, this isn't about your loans or money. I'm calling you because I'm worried about you. You know? And that was the first instance that somebody outside of my circle tried to get a hold of me and say, hey, we know you're in bad shape, man. What are you doing? And that was kind of, I think maybe that was whenever I realized, okay, something might be up, you know. And shortly after that, my mom, all that shit happened, and I ended up going to treatment, you know. So I think maybe him calling me was a little bit of a light turning on.
Yeah.
Right. You know.
You know, and I think that says something too to people about if you're concerned about somebody or if you have a question about somebody, I think it's always best to kind of act on those concerns, you know, because it's easy for us to say, you know, I should really call so and so, and then we don't. You know, I mean, I think more so in the program, I've learned that you jump on that. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody, go talk to them right now. Something might be up, whatever that is. You can call it a God shot, you can call it coincidence, you can call it whatever you want. But it always ends up being the right thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I've really loved, is that sort of, whenever I have a feeling of spontaneous generosity, even in the smallest way, even it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, act on it rather than go, oh, you know, it would be really cool if I did this, this, and this, and then you don't do it. I've just found it's always best to reach out to people. But
yeah, those coincidences usually they end up not being coincidences.
Right.
You know, it's pretty strange. So I'm out in Arizona hanging out, and I called my banker. As soon as I got to Arizona, I told him what the deal was. I said, man, look, I feel great. I'm in Arizona. I'm going to stay out here for a month maybe and try to settle my nerves a little bit, and I'll be back home, and I'm going to try to get to work as soon as that. I'll get you paid up. I'll get my stuff caught up. And he said, hey, Chade, don't worry about anything. He said, don't worry about money. He said, you don't have to pay me a dime right now. He said, take care of your stuff and get to feeling better. Call me as soon as you get back into town and start working as soon as you can. And whenever you make a little bit of money, call me and we'll pick up where we left off. You know, and I was like, wow. And that was whenever I realized that there people are on my team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people want to see me. They want to see me get better. You know? And that was the first time I realized everybody wasn't an asshole anymore. I was the asshole.
Yeah.
they were just pissed off at me, man. But out there, I the first epiphany I had about the miracle they speak of that possibly could have happened to me. You know, they sell liquor in the grocery stores in Arizona. They don't do that in Texas. And I'd go into this grocery store every day and get a pack of smokes and a Red Bull and a water. Well, the cigarettes were straight down the liquor aisle in the back of the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going in there for 3 weeks, man. And I'm buying a pack of smokes and a Red Bull and a water every day for 3 weeks, walking down the liquor aisle in this grocery store. And it had never dawned on me that I was walking down the liquor aisle. I never even noticed the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I stopped and I saw a bottle of fucking vodka sitting right there at eye level. And I was like, holy shit, it happened, man. It really, really happened.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And I left that day. And from there on, I was like, all right, I'm ready to go home, Mom. You know, take me back to Texas. I want to see Callie. And I want to get my shit together, you know. And I had talked to my wife whenever I came home out of treatment. That night, I stayed for 2 days, I think, and I told her, you know, we were all but divorced. You know, we didn't talk to each other. We, you know, bunch of really unhealthy shit in the marriage, of course, you know. And we sat down and I told her, I said, hey, look, I've got to go this direction. You know, I can't do that shit anymore. I can't go party. I can't drink. I can't smoke weed. I can't do that stuff anymore. I said, if you want to, that's fine, you know, but I got to know right now if you can't do this with me, then I've got to do something else, you know, because I will die if I keep doing that shit. And she said, hey, let's do it. You know, she said, I want to go with you. I said, okay, well, let's start over again, you know. And we were married 13 years at that point in time.
Wow.
And she said, let's do it, you know. So we did it. You know, we've been married 16 years now.
Wow.
the last 3 years, my sober 3 years, you know, have really honestly been the best years of my life. They really, really have. You know, and I've had a good life. I'm an upper middle class white kid from the Texas Panhandle. I've had a pretty damn good life, you know.
Yeah.
But the last 3 years have really, really topped the notch, man. You know?
Yeah.
But I'm ready to come home from Arizona. I'm feeling good. I've realized that something changed. You know, I don't want to drink. I've seen booze. I've been around people drinking, and it dawned on me, you know, I can't drink ever again in my life. I remember my mom asking me how I was feeling, and I told her that. I said, you know, it really hit me that I can never fucking drink again. I was like, that is a long time, forever. I can't drink.
Yeah.
You know? And I was a little nervous, but I realized, you know, I don't need it. You know, I really don't need it now. And I couldn't. It blew my mind. I can't tell you how jumbled up my brain was, because how I felt did not fucking make sense. It just didn't make sense. I couldn't believe how I didn't want to drink anymore, you know. But I came home and went to work. You know, my dad, right before he died, a few months before he died, we were working in a house and we were doing a certain thing, and I'd asked him. I talked about this the other night on Instagram with an interview with a guy. And it was the summer before he died, and I said, Dad, what am I ever going to do if I lose you, man? Me and him got really, really close, working together every day. We were best friends. I said, you know, you're my boss, you're my landlord, you're my best friend. What the hell am I going to do if you ever die? And he said, just go back to work, son. You know, and that was as simple as it was to him, you know. And I came back to Perryton, and I would pray, you know, what's my path? What am I supposed to do? You know, whatever that is, I want to do that, but I don't know what that is. You know, please tell me what you want me to do. And I just hear this little voice in my head saying, go back to work, son. You know, so I did. I called some clients and laid it all out on the table. You know, I went around and started talking to people and friends and told them, you know, this is the shit I've been doing. You know, I was really screwed up, and I went and got some help, and I'm sober now, and I feel really good. You know, and I told her, I said, I'm not doing this to try to get work. I'm just letting you know that I'm fucking sorry for flaking out on you. You know, and every single person said, well, I'm glad you're back, man. We need some help. Come over and do this, and we'll get to going again. You know, every single person said that.
Yeah.
So I got my business back up and running, and a little bit at a time, 3 years later, I'm doing the business is doing better than it ever has. I'm doing better than I ever have. You know, gratitude runs my life. I'm so fucking grateful to be able to keep my life, to keep my business, keep everything. You know, I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose a single thing. I almost lost everything. Right in the nick of time, something happened, and somebody stepped in my life and offered to help me, and I was ready at that point in time. You know, I don't think, if you're not ready, I don't think it's not going to work. You know, I could have gone to treatment and all that shit, but I was ready. If I wasn't ready, I would have came back home and started drinking again. You know,
Yeah.
Everybody has to reach that point, and it's different for everybody. You know, what and some people never get to that point. You know, that's the sad truth of it all.
Yeah.
Most people never get to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It continues to be a manageable predicament for people. And I know I was the same way with that. You say I didn't lose anything. And I mean, I was very close. I was very close to losing a lot of things. And I had destroyed one relationship. But it could have been a lot worse. And something, I don't know what it was, something came in and said, hey, look at all the stuff that you have. Look at, you know, you're going to lose this all. You need to figure something out. And then little by little, people were put in front of me that were like, hey, this is how we did it. This is here for you if you want it. And then I was like, yes, I want it, because I was just that I think you said it, something about just being tired, just being, tired every single fucking day. And just finally, we all have that breaking point, I think, as alcoholics, where you wake up and you go, I don't have the energy to be an alcoholic today. I don't have the energy to drink today. And that's that weird sort of that first little epiphany of like, what do you mean? This is the only thing that I live for, and I don't even have the energy to do this. Yeah. So, but I look at, we met, obviously online, and I follow you on Instagram, and I absolutely love the videos that you put out now with, you've been doing it for a little while now, but all the painting and the sanding and like putting the old country music to it. And it's super cool stuff, man. I just love being able to see, like, because I can't do what you do, right? So I don't have the craftsmanship tools that you have, like, and when I say tools, I mean abilities, like to do that stuff. So I always love being able to see things actually built. My girlfriend's place, there was this empty lot. It was nothing. It was dirt. And then I watched every week, like, this whole building is brand new, and stuff like that. And so to see things created, and, you could probably throw whatever metaphor you want in there about alcoholism and recovery and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's really beautiful to watch. So, I mean, and when in your program, what is it like? What does your program look like on a daily basis that keeps you sober?
It's like I said, gratitude runs my life. It really, really, really does. And whenever I got home, and I went to a meeting every day, basically. That was, I hear people talking about just trading one addiction for another and this, but fuck it. I never came home like you guys said. I never ate a gallon of ice cream and yelled at my wife.
Yeah.
I never went to a meeting and came home and slammed the fucking door and screamed.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very positive thing. And they talk about deflation at depth that one has to have to grasp changing. Speaking of the ego. And I definitely had deflation at depth, and I came into the program and I didn't know anything and I didn't care. You tell me what to do and I'll do it, and that's what I did. I went to work every day, and I'd wake up in the morning and I meditated. I got into meditation a lot, and that really slowed my mind down. It gave me a pause button before reaction. Is what meditation's really done for me. And it brought me back to earth, and realizing that I'm just one dude in the Texas Panhandle of 7 billion plus people in the whole world. And my hero of my entire life, my dad, he died, but the world kept spinning. If he dies and the world keeps going, then nobody's gonna fucking blink for me. And I know people love me. I'm not saying that I don't matter at all. That's ridiculous. But in the grand scheme of things, you don't matter. Everything keeps going. I quit working, and other painters came in and painted people's houses. Nobody just said, "Well, shit, we got to wait for Chade."
Yeah.
And I realized that, and it really brought me down to earth.
Yeah.
And it was just literally one day at a time. Sometimes, an hour at a time. And my wife was a really big part of it too. She's cool. She's a cool chick, and she was 100% supportive. She's not an alcoholic, but whenever we talked, whenever I first got back, she said, I'll quit too. And she hasn't drank a drop since I quit. We come home and we laugh together. We make fun of each other. She does a bunch of dumb shit, and so do I, and we both laugh at each other. And it's pretty awesome. I grew up in a really, really loving household. I can honestly tell you that I've never one time seen my parents fight. I've never seen them argue. I've never seen them raise their voice at one another. Not one single time has that ever happened to me in front of me. You know, and I told them that one time, and they just laughed. They said, well, hell, they said, they promised themselves not to fight in front of the kids. And whenever something went down at the house, they would both shut up. And after we'd go to bed, they'd go to the room and they would discuss their own business. You know, it was never in front of the children. And I remember that, man. And that has been a huge influence on me and mine and my wife's relationship too. You know, to be able to get over shit and all the stuff that we've been through. I'm so grateful for that woman. You know, I realized in treatment that I have to change. I cannot fucking drink anymore. I'm going to die. What if I come home and all of her stuff's gone and she's moved out, you know? And that was like, shit. And it was like, well, if that's what has to happen, then so be it, you know? I've got to quit drinking. And I had gotten to that point in my mind. And I think that really helped me that I had to get sober, period, you know? If my wife was gone, if my business never came back, I'd figure something else out, you know. And but yeah, her and I just trugged on along, man. And it's a hell of a thing to look back on.
Yeah.
And,
is there anything that you still struggle with today as far as anything with your sobriety, recovery, or anything at all?
But man, I have zero desire to drink, you know, and smoking weed and whatever other illicit substances I may have taken part of, you know, I really don't have any desire whatsoever. You know, a couple of times, you know, booze is fucking gross.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna sit down and eat a steak, I don't want a beer, man. I want some iced tea or something. I'm a big fan of. I got some liquid death.
What is that?
It's just carbonated water.
Okay.
It's supposed to murder your thirst. But we drink a lot of Topo Chico, man. That's you know. Yeah, booze is gross, man. And the only drink that my mouth has watered for was a michelada.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, I love Clamato and a Dos Equis and all the Tabasco, and you know, I'd down those suckers. They tasted good.
Yeah.
But then instantly my mind went to, dude, you don't sit on the porch and drink micheladas. No. You fucking drink a gallon of vodka and almost die.
Yeah.
You know? And that's where I've got to be realistic. You know, you can't romanticize this shit. You know, those girls aren't sitting at the bar drinking a fruity drink and giggling, man. You know, that's a commercial. That's a TV ad.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is they're fucking puking in the bathroom in the bar trying to do lines off the back of the toilet. That's
exactly.
Reality,
yeah.
You know?
I know. I've been there. I've seen them. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
And then I do want to say, before we wrap up here, for anybody listening, what would you suggest to somebody who's thinking about quitting or thinking that they might have a problem?
You know, just really evaluate your life. You know, that I've really, especially since this COVID stuff's been going on, you know, I've used it as a chance to really reevaluate my priorities. You know, when if some real stuff goes down, an emergency happens, what's the first thing I think of? It's not work, man. It's not the office. It's not that house I'm painting. It's my wife. Like, oh shit, I got to get home to Callie. You know, I got to make sure she's okay, or what. You know, those are where my priorities are today, and they haven't always been that way. You know, it used to literally, my priority was if I had enough vodka to get through the night, and okay, I'm good for the night. Well, what about tomorrow? You know, and those were the first thoughts. You know, and even the ball. You know, if you got things planned and booze gets in the way, you know, that might be, and you may not be an alcoholic, you know, nobody can judge that shit but you, but you got to be real about it, man. You got to think about it from a different perspective. You know, it's all perspective. That's the only thing in my life that changes, my perspective on things. You know, I still paint houses. I used to hate it. You know, I used to hate it, but I love it now. It's just a perspective change. I'm grateful to have a skill that I can go anywhere in the world and have a job.
Yeah.
I get to work for myself and stuff. But yeah, man, if you have a problem, then sit down and think about it. And if you think you do, then go with that. You know, you will talk yourself out of it. You know?
Yes,
you will.
I've done it.
I have a problem. No, I don't. No, I don't.
Yeah.
You know? And if you think you might, then just, you know, call somebody. If they don't answer, call somebody else. You know, hit a meeting, hit a forum, an online deal. You know,
Yeah.
Do something.
Right.
You know? And then hell.
Mm-hmm.
There's some literature that says try to stop drinking for a year. See if you can do it. Go to a bar and have a couple drinks and go home and see what happens. See how your mind treats it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you can do that, then maybe you're okay. But if you can't, then it's I think ego. I learned through all this deal. The ego is a lot more than that beefed up dude at the gym that looks at himself in the mirror all the time. You know, that's what I thought ego was, you know, but ego is it trickles down every crevice of our soul forever. Ego runs so deep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it lies to us.
Yeah.
You know, and it's something that I realized, and once I realized that you know, I'm lying to myself straight up. You know, I finally realized that, and everything changed. You know,
it's a hard thing to escape, man. Like, I think about that too. I know you've read a lot of Marcus Aurelius, and who else talks about the ego? I don't know if I've read a little bit of Carl Jung. It's a little bit above my thought process, but that's why I like it too, is, you know, because it challenges me a little bit. But I see myself all the time, and I'm getting better at like catching my ego and going, oh no, that's not serving you. You're just you know, you're just fulfilling whatever little desire you think you want. Like, you don't need that, you don't want that, you're not really. And so I think that's, for me, that's part of like getting better at like checking myself, because it does run deep.
Yeah, you know, I was always pretty judgmental about people. I was really critical, you know, and that was always a big deal too. Was you're just not doing it right. Let me show you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you know, the stove burnt your hand. You know, well, you just didn't pull away fast enough. Here, watch this. I'll show you.
Yeah.
You know? And I burned the shit out of myself too. Well, damn it! Hold on, I wasn't ready. Let me try it again. You know?
My technique wasn't right. Yeah.
And that was a big thing always, but realizing that I'm just as slow as everybody else. Don't touch the fucking stove. You know.
Absolutely, just don't touch the fucking stove.
One book that I did read when I first got out was Mark Manson, the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Of the book. I love that book, man.
Yeah, it's a great book.
The first chapter is called "Don't Try."
Yeah. Yeah. I have it tattooed on my hand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. But one of the things that really stuck out in that book was he says to the effect of you only have so many fucks to give, so choose your fucks wisely. And I know that's pretty crude language or whatever, you know, but it caught my attention. And straight, you know, you only have so many to give, so choose them wisely.
Yeah.
You know, today I choose to give a fuck about my family. I choose my work. You know, I choose to help people. And I used to only choose booze. You know, that's where it ended up anyways.
Yeah.
But choose them wisely. You've only got so many.
It's true. It's true, man. Well, thank you, Chade. Man,
thank you.
That was awesome. I really appreciate you sharing. And it's always great to hear somebody else's perspective, because I think even in sobriety and in my own recovery, it's easy for me to get caught up in thinking in my own way of thinking. And it's easy for me to go, well, you know what? I've got it figured out for now. And it's always great to hear what somebody else has done and how somebody else has seen the exact same thing that I've gone through, and go, oh, wow, that's right. That's what I need to work on. That's what I need to change. That's what I'm missing. So I think that's an important thing about talking to other alcoholics is I'm looking for my blind spots, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So I appreciate you showing me some of my blind spots today. For sure.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I want to say both of you guys, I think I found this whenever I was around 6 months or so. And actually, we were heading to a funeral of one of my wife's relatives, and I found y'all the night before, I think through Instagram. And I got on the iTunes podcast or whatever, and I listened to every episode up to date on that drive to the funeral. And I've listened every week since.
Wow.
You know, you guys are doing an awesome thing, and it's a different perspective. You know, you're not preaching the book. You're not evangelists. You're just two fucking drunks that sit here and talk to each other about being wrong. You know, whether it's jogging and eating or whatever, you know. But I thoroughly enjoy this podcast, and I really, really thank you guys for putting it out. It's been a big help for me. It really, really has. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Chade.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.